They're clearly absolutely shocked still at what happened because they really don't know why they were arrested. They were never given a reason, and the Foreign Office don't know why they were held for so long. And they're very, they love the country. They actually want to go back. And so they didn't want to criticize, I think, too much.
Now, Barbie and Peter Reynolds dedicated 2 decades of their lives to helping families in Afghanistan. But when the Taliban retook the country, the British pensioners were thrown into Kabul's maximum security prison, where they spent 8 months. They are now back in the UK, and they've given their very first interview to the brilliant Christina Lamb, Sunday Times chief foreign correspondent. Good morning, Christina.
Morning, Calum.
Shall we start with why they were in Afghanistan in the first place? What took them there?
Sure. I mean, they both worked there in gap years back in the 60s, and they fell in love with it. And they'd met at Bath University, and they fell in love with Afghanistan so much that they actually went there to get married in 1970. Of course, this was the time of the sort of hippie trail where quite a lot of people, young people, were going overland through Iran and to Afghanistan.
And why did it go wrong for them? Why were they then arrested and thrown into prison, maximum security prison indeed?
Well, they don't really know. I mean, so having fallen in love with Afghanistan in 1970, they then got married, as I said there, and had children. And the plan was to actually go back and live with the kids in Afghanistan. But then Afghanistan erupted. Well, first of all, it was invaded by the Russians, then had civil war, then the Taliban took over. So there was years of chaos. So it was very long before they could go back. And finally, they went back 20 years ago and had been running these projects there, training projects. And then one day, exactly a year ago today, they were just going to their home in Bamiyan from a flight from Kabul and were stopped on the road by armed guards and told that they needed to go with them, and it would just be 15 minutes, there was nothing wrong. That 15 minutes turned into 8 months, and they ended up actually in Turkey, which is the most notorious maximum security prison in Afghanistan.
What were conditions like in that prison?
Conditions are really grim. I mean, it's interesting meeting Barbie and Peter because they're absolutely lovely. And I'd only just met them once before when they landed back in September. And they're clearly absolutely shocked still at what happened because they really don't know why they were arrested. They were never given a reason, and the Foreign Office don't know why they were held for so long. And they're very, they love the country. They actually want to go back. And so they didn't want to criticize, I think, too much. But having said that, I mean, they talked about being in cells full of cockroaches, of rats, of sharing a hole in the ground with hundreds of prisoners and clearly dreadful food. Barbie at one point was suffering from malnutrition. And these are, elderly people. She spent her 76th birthday in jail. He spent his 80th birthday in jail, and he has a heart condition. He previously had a heart attack.
Wow. They are amazing because you write in your article of Peter's determination to hug, in fact, give a big hug to the man who made the decision to arrest them.
Yeah, I was slightly stunned when you told that. But I mean, Barbie, for example, when she was in the women's prison in Turkey, she ended up actually giving English lessons to the other prisoners. So they're very remarkable people, but they've been through a terrible experience, and they're also finding it quite difficult adjusting back to life in UK because everything they owned they'd sold up and taken to Afghanistan. They have nothing here. Wow. They literally arrived back with the clothes on their back.
It's remarkable. What led to their release?
Well, there was a lot of diplomatic activity behind the scenes. Of course, one of the problems is nobody but Russia recognises the Taliban. So the UK has no diplomatic presence there, so really had no influence over the Taliban. But the Qataris, who have really positioned themselves as negotiators and mediators in many things now, they do have people on the ground. So it was really mostly them that were negotiating this. But the couple also feel that the media attention helped. But, the Foreign Office always advise when Brits overseas are detained for families not to speak out, but their family did. They actually spoke to us first, and we wrote a lot of stories, and they really believe that focusing the spotlight on what was happening to them was very important. But, this is a country, as you know, where girls can't go to school, women can't work. The Taliban just a week ago issued a new criminal code, which does things like legalize slavery. There's been ministers saying things like not only should women totally cover themselves, but they should even cover one eye so that both eyes aren't kind of taking up. I don't even understand the logic, but they aren't taking up somehow the atmosphere of Afghanistan. So, this is a really, really harsh and difficult regime. So to end up in their hands for reasons that you don't know is incredibly disturbing. And some of their stories of the prisoners that they were with, particularly Barbie, the women's prisoner, really, she says 90% of the people that she was with had done nothing. They were there because of things that had been done to them.
Yeah, it is utterly astonishing, and your writing on it is amazing, Christina, and their reflections on it are amazing as well. How are they now? You mentioned that they have some sort of desire to go back to Afghanistan.
I think not in the immediate future.
Yeah,
I
sure.
was interviewing them with their eldest daughter, Sarah, and her eyebrows were raising as they were talking about their desire to go back. But it's a big shock for them what happened. Obviously, they're still processing it, and even getting used to how life here has changed in those 20 years they've been away. They were talking about how they didn't understand when you go shopping and you're asked to tap your card. They didn't know what people meant by that. And they also had nowhere to live here. Fortunately, one of their sons had a small flat in Bath, which they're borrowing. But it's very difficult. But they've had it's funny because they both studied sociology, and they describe this as sort of unwitting investigation into Afghanistan's prisons.
Yes, one which would have been nice to not experience, I suppose.
Yes, definitely.
In the grand scheme of things. Christina, it's lovely to speak to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Christina Lamb is Sunday Times chief foreign correspondent who has written about Barbie and Peter Reynolds. Christina's spoken to them on their return to the UK, having spent 8 months in horrendous conditions. And there's more detail on that and their experiences, and their passion and affection for Afghanistan comes through in Christina's writing and in their interview as well. You can read that in the Sunday Times today, and with your digital subscription, go to thetimes.com.